Welcome to the world of easy speed sewing. You have purchased the easiest serger on the market today. Your White Superlock was designed with you, the home sewer, in mind. It is the easiest to thread and the simplest to change from regular serging to specialty serging. Plus a built-in handle and a light, recessed cutters for safety and extra sewing space all add up to more sewing convenience. The exclusive thread tension release will help you in threading, easy removal of projects, and creative sewing. This video workbook is designed to take you visually through your Superlock workbook, showing a variety of techniques, each one with a sample for you to serge and then to mount in your workbook for future reference. The techniques will include setting up your Superlock and caring for it, threading and tension, basic and specialty sewing techniques, differential feed, and the optional accessories. As you view the tape and serge your way through your Superlock workbook, if at any time you have questions on the techniques or the instructions, simply stop your video recorder, rewind, and review the information. You may want to stop the tape as you serge the samples and mount them in your workbook. Soon you will see how much faster and easier your sewing will be with your new White Superlock. First, let's get to know your machine. The stitches are formed differently on overlock machines than they are on your regular sewing machine. All Superlocks use 2 loopers and 1 or 2 needles to form the stitch. The looper on the left is the lower looper and forms the stitch on the underside of the fabric as you serge. The looper on the right is the upper looper and forms the stitch on the top side of the fabric. The looper threads form the stitches over a stitch finger on the throat plate, which eliminates the puckering and pulling of stitching that sometimes happens when you sew on a conventional sewing machine. The left needle sews a straight stitch while securing the looper threads. This creates a strong yet stretchy seam. The right needle adds a safety stitch for strength and stability. We will demonstrate 2 models of Superlock on this video. Model 734, a 3/4 thread serger with safety stitch, and the top-of-the-line Superlock Model 734DW, our 2, 3, and 4 thread serger with adjustable cutting width and differential feed for the most professional results in knit sewing, shears and silkies, and specialty techniques such as gathering. We will sew this video workbook on the 734DW. Owners of the Model 734 will disregard the techniques related to fine-tune width adjustment and differential feed. Before serging, we'll discuss Superlock setup and maintenance. Set your Superlock on a sturdy, flat surface. Consult your workbook should it need balancing. Wipe off any excess oil so that it won't get on your project. Push the foot control plug into the socket at the side of the machine and plug it into a power source. Your Superlock has an on-off switch for safety. Simply turn it to the on position and sew. And the hand wheel turns toward you, just like your regular sewing machine. Another convenience feature. Our exclusive thread tension release lever above the hand wheel will save you lots of time and effort when threading and when removing your work from the machine. To open the front cover, pull it toward you. It will latch automatically when closed. To open the side cover, pull the release lever toward you and swing the cover to the left. Again, it will latch when pushed closed. Can you see how easy your Superlock is to thread and to clean because of our exclusive swing-away cutter system? Always disconnect your Superlock from the power supply before cleaning. Simply open the covers and brush out dust and lint after each garment. After about 8 hours of sewing, remove the lint tray on the base of your Superlock and clean and oil as instructed in your workbook. From time to time, you may want to clean between the cutters. To lower the moving cutter, Simply push the cutter knob toward the cutter and turn it toward you. To raise the moving cutter back into its position, push the knob again and turn the cutter back up. Use a quality thread when serging for best results. Thread can be purchased in either spool or cone form. When standard spools are used, the spool caps provided will keep the thread from getting caught on the serrated edge of the spool. The cone holders underneath the cones keep them stable so the thread feeds off evenly. Anytime thread breakage occurs, check to see that thread is not caught somewhere and that your Superlock is threaded correctly. The correct needle and a needle in good condition are important to successful stitching on your White Superlock. Change needles often. Consult your workbook for specific recommendations on the type of needle. We suggest a new needle for every new garment. Do not be intimidated about threading your new Superlock. You have the easiest serger to thread ever. The color-coded threading diagram illustrates the thread paths clearly. Place your thread on the spool pins. Use the correct cone holder or spool cap for your type of thread. Now thread your Superlock in the following order. First the upper looper, then the lower looper, and finally the needle or needles. Pull the thread guide pole to its highest position. Now to thread the upper looper, bring the thread end through the guide from the back to the front and into the guide at the back of the machine. Lay the thread into the thread groove on the top of your Superlock. Open the front cover and continue threading following the threading chart. You will follow the thread guides as illustrated with the blue dots. And then you will thread into the eye of the upper looper from front to back. Pull a 4-inch tail of thread to the back of the machine to help you get started. Isn't it great that all the guides are open on one side so that you simply pull the thread into them? Next, we'll thread the lower looper, again slipping the thread into the guide on the thread pole and the guide at the back of the machine. Now lay it into the tension groove. Follow the threading chart, and this time there are 4 guides that are marked with purple triangles. Don't forget the guide at the base of the looper arm. From that guide, bring the thread up behind the lower looper and slip it into the open slot on the left end of the looper from back to front. Lay your thread in the groove in the looper while bringing it to the eye and thread it through front to back, leaving a 4-inch tail at the back of the machine. Wasn't that easy? Threading the needle is even easier than on your conventional sewing machine. Simply slip the thread into the guide on the thread pole and into the guide at the back of the machine, and again lay it into the groove. Bring the thread from the groove to the left over the thread guide furthermost to the left and into the guide above the needle. Finally, thread the needle eye from front to back. You will repeat this for the other needle. Once you have threaded your Superlock with 1 or 2 threads, we will want to seat the threads into the tension discs. So for that reason, we'll press down on the tension release and pull on the thread ends. The reason we press down on the tension release lever is to seat the threads into the tension discs. On other sergers, there is no way to open the discs to be sure the thread is seated. This is just another great feature of your White Superlock. When changing thread colors, it is easy to tie the new color onto the old. You will simply cut the threads on your Superlock above the spool pin and tie on new threads with a square or overhand knot. Then press the tension release lever and pull the threads through. Your knots will pass through the loopers easily, but you'll need to snip the thread when the knot reaches the needle and re-thread the needle eye. Thread tension settings may vary with different types of fabrics and threads. Always experiment on scraps before beginning your project. Turning the tension dial to a lower number puts less tension on the thread and a higher number more tension. Consult your Superlock workbook now to adjust the tension on your Superlock. Mark the numbers for balanced tension in your workbook. We will refer to these settings as normal tension. For normal sewing on your Superlock 734DW or 734, set the tensions approximately as follows. The left needle about 4 to 5, the right needle 3 to 4, the upper looper 1 to 2, and the lower looper 2 to 3. The settings for normal will vary with different thread and fabric types. Always serge a test sample before starting your garment. Now let's sew on a scrap of fabric. When you reach the end of the fabric, press the tension release lever and remove the fabric from your machine. Using the illustrations in your workbook as a guide, check the stitch formation to see if it is uniform. If not, you will need to adjust the tension or to check to see that your machine is threaded correctly. Now you are ready to serge. As you complete the sample technique swatches, mount them on the page facing the instructions for future reference. First, we will serge a seam and finish an edge. Use the standard needle plate, both needles threaded for 3/4 thread sewing, and set the stitch length between 2 and 3. The stitch length is easily adjusted with the turn of the dial located on the left side of your Superlock toward the back. On Superlock model 734DW, the dial toward the front on the left side of the machine sets the stitch width. Set this at the normal setting of 5 now. Your tension setting should be normal. A fabric kit to complement your Superlock workbook is available for purchase from your local White dealer and includes all the supplies needed to complete your Superlock workbook. Select a piece of medium weight woven fabric and fold it in half. Place it under the presser foot with the folded edge to the right, even with the 5/8 inch seam guide. Next, serge the seam. Once you have serged, serge off the fabric, leaving a 4-inch tail, and then cut the tail of thread. You don't need to raise the presser foot to remove your fabric from your Superlock. Won't this make your sewing faster? Now serge a single thickness of the same piece of fabric along one edge. Whether you seam an overcast in one step, then press the seam to one side, or overcast your raw edges and then seam your garment on your conventional sewing machine, as with skirts and unlined jackets, your Superlock helps you create faster and with a more professionally finished end result. Once you've completed it, mount this sample in your workbook. Next, we will serge a sample to illustrate the different stitch length settings on your new Superlock. Use normal tension settings and set the stitch length dial at 5. Fold another piece of medium weight woven in half. Serge along the edge for about 1 inch. Stop sewing and set the stitch length dial to 4. Serge about 1 inch again. Next, set the dial to 3, serge, then 2, serge, then 1. Notice the variety of lengths available. Throughout this workbook, you will find the ease in adjusting your stitch length to be a real advantage for different techniques. Stitch a sample to practice the different stitch widths on your Superlock. Use the stitch length 2.5 and the normal tension settings. Select a piece of medium weight woven fabric. For a 5mm wide stitch, snip the right needle thread. Now serge along one edge of the fabric. You will use this wider stitch for a lighter seam finish on edges, to seam and overcast stretchy knits, and for many decorative techniques. On the top of the line Superlock model 734DW, the stitch cutting width can be adjusted from 4 millimeters to 6 millimeters. This will fine-tune your Superlock stitching. Set the width dial to 4 now and serge along another edge of your medium weight fabric. Then you will set the width to 6 and serge along the opposite edge. Because you can adjust the cutting when extra fabric puckers within the overlock stitch, simply set the width toward 4. When loops form off the edge of the fabric, increase the width setting toward 6. You may set it anywhere between 4 and 6, wherever the best stitch result is found. Now for a narrow stitch, about 2.8, you will want to snip the left needle thread and remove the needle from your Superlock. To remove the needle, loosen the needle clamp screw. Notice that one screw holds both needles in place. If you leave your needles threaded before taking them out, it makes this process easier in case you drop one. Remove the left needle and then tighten the screw while holding the right needle all the way up into the needle clamp. Thread the right needle and stitch along the piece of medium weight fabric, and you will see your narrower 2.8 stitch. This narrower stitch is used to finish lighter weight fabrics, to seam lingerie, and for baby garments. And you'll find that you'll stitch your narrow decorative effects this way. The narrowest 2.0 millimeter width is sewn with the rolled edge plate and foot, and we will cover this later in the video. Top of the line Superlock 734DW has a converter for 2-thread serging. The 2-thread overlock stitch is often used in ready-made clothing to finish edges. It forms a lighter, flatter finish and is especially nice for a very lightweight fabric. To create the 2-thread stitch, use only one needle. The left needle for a wide 2-thread stitch or the right for a narrow stitch. You will be removing the upper looper thread totally. Once you have one needle threaded, you will open the front and side covers and raise the needle to its highest point by turning the hand wheel toward you. Now, open the lid of the storage pocket for the 2-thread converter. It's located in the door, and attach the 2-thread converter onto the upper looper by fitting it into the mounting hole. Lower the lever as far as it will go while pushing the center of the lever so the finger is inserted into the upper looper eye, filling it. Because the eye of the looper is filled, you will use only the needle thread and the lower looper thread. Tension settings vary according to the fabric and the technique, but for normal 2-thread overlock stitch, set the needle at about 2 and the lower looper about 4. Always stitch a practice sample first. The 2-thread stitching is also used for flat lock and rolled edge, and this will be covered later in this video. Run a sample now of 2-thread serging. Now let's practice securing the beginning and the ends of seams. We have removed the 2-thread converter and re-threaded to a wide 3/4 thread overlock stitch, length 2.5, and normal tension settings. Select a medium weight woven fabric. Fold it in half and place it under the presser foot. Serge several stitches onto the fabric. Stop sewing. Raise the presser foot and bring the thread chain around the left of the foot and under the front of the foot and in front of the cutter. Lower the presser foot and serge. The cutter will trim off the excess thread chain. When you reach the end of the seam, sew one stitch off the end of the fabric, raise the presser foot, press the tension release lever, and pull slightly on the fabric to clear the chain of threads off the stitch finger. Place the fabric back under the presser foot about a ½ inch from the end and serge over your original stitching. Most ends of seams and edges are later stitched over during garment construction. However, there will be times you will want to secure them in this way. Serge neat outside corners with a little bit of practice. Continue to use stitch length 2½ and normal tension settings. Place one edge of a medium weight woven fabric against the cutter and serge along that edge to one stitch off the end. Raise the needle and the presser foot. Gently slide the thread chain off the stitch finger, grasping the fabric lightly, and turn the corner with the fabric. Realign the edge of the fabric and place the cut edge against the cutter. Pull up any slack in the needle thread. Align the needle back into the needle line of stitching and serge along this edge. Repeat this procedure for all the other corners. Use this technique for scarves and napkins. Notice your piece is cut to size. You cannot turn perfect square corners while trimming with your Superlock. To practice the technique for inside corners, cut a square out of one corner of a medium weight woven fabric. Align the cut edge with the edge of the cutter. Serge up to 1/2 inch from the inside corner. Because your cutter is in front of the needle, you must stop serging before reaching the corner. Now pull the fabric into a straight line and align the edge of the fabric against the cutter. Continue serging along this edge. There may be some tucks in the edge, but they should lay flat after finishing. This may take a little bit of practice. This same technique can be used for sleeve plackets. Consult your Superlock workbook. Serge over cord, ribbon, and other bulky threads to produce a corded overlock for stabilizing and decorative serging. One of the special features of your new Superlock is the guide holes in the presser foot, allowing you to serge over cord with ease. Snap the cord guide onto the thread pole and thread the cord or ribbon through it, and then down through the guide on the left side of the machine. To stabilize seams with your Superlock, insert the ribbon or tape through the front hole in the presser foot so that the right needle thread will be stitching through it. Now serge a sample for your workbook using a piece of sweatshirt fleece. This technique is especially useful for knit garments and on crosswise grain and bias seams in wovens. Most shoulder seams should be stabilized in this way. To stitch over the cord without catching it, insert it into the back hole of the presser foot. You may want to serge the opposite side of the sweatshirt fleece now without catching the cord. This technique is used for decorative serging, as well as for a very strong and adjustable gathering thread stitched within your serging. Select a piece of silky woven and a piece of elastic to practice the elastic application. Lengthen your stitch to 4½ Use normal tension, although you may need to tighten the needle tension when sewing some elastics. Lay the elastic on top of your fabric near the edge. Place them under the presser foot so the edge of the elastic is against the cutter. Now serge the elastic to the fabric, stretching the elastic as you sew. You may wish to trim the fabric edge, but do not cut the elastic as it weakens it. Use this technique for waistbands, cuffs, anywhere you wish to eliminate a casing. Now press the tension release lever and remove your sample. Gathering lightweight fabrics is simple on your new Superlock. Use stitch length 5 and increase the needle tensions both all the way to 10. Select a lightweight woven fabric and place it under the presser foot. As you serge, place your left forefinger behind the presser foot and press the fabric against the back of the foot as it emerges from under the presser foot. When you reach the end of the fabric, continue to sew a long chain so that you can adjust the gathers if needed. This technique works really well for rosettes, gathered skirts, and more. No more popped neck ribbing when you superlock your ribbing on. Use normal tension settings and a stitch length of 3. Select a piece of t-shirt knit and a piece of ribbing. Cut a mock neckline in the knit and fold the ribbing in half lengthwise. Serge the ribbing to the neck edge, right sides together, with the ribbing on the top. Stretch the ribbing to fit the neckline as you sew. Your Superlock will finish, trim, and allow the edge to flex while still remembering its original shape. Won't this save you time and make your sewing more fun? Why not make a t-shirt for someone special this afternoon? You can finish wovens or knits with ribbing. What a fast way to finish those edges. Use serger tucks to create one-of-a-kind garments and crafts. Set your stitch length to 2 and use normal tension. Use 1 needle only, depending on the width of the tuck you desire. We will use the left needle only for wide tucks. Select a medium weight woven and mark the placement of the tucks with a water-soluble marker or by pressing a crease. Now fold on the markings, wrong sides together, and place the folded edge along the cutter and serge. Use the cutter as a guide only. Do not cut the fabric. Repeat for additional tucks. Use the blind hem foot available as an accessory to guide the fabric for perfect tucks without cutting. Remember, you can use the right needle only for narrower tucks and the rolled edge setting for the narrowest of tucks often found in serger heirloom sewing. Consult your Superlock workbook for more ideas for tucks and for flip-flop tucks. For this decorative edges technique, thread pearl cotton number 8, top stitching thread, or any other decorative thread into your upper looper. We will use the left needle only for 3-thread sewing. Because the looper eyes are large, you can thread them with many specialty decorative threads, cords, and ribbons, and finish edges quickly. Many of these threads are not on a standard spool or a cone, so you must be sure they reel off evenly as you serge. Often laying the thread in rows on the table behind your Superlock is the best option. To thread the eye of your upper looper with the large decorative threads, try a dental floss threader. These are available at your drugstore. Put the long straight end of the dental floss threader through the upper looper eye, then slip the decorative thread into the loop and pull the floss threader through the eye of the looper, pulling the thread in place. Once you have threaded the upper looper, run a sample and make tension adjustments. Generally, you will loosen the tension of the looper you have the decorative thread in. The rule is the larger the decorative thread, the lower the tension setting. Serge a decorative edge on a piece of denim now. Use a stitch length of 3 to 5. Always experiment on scraps before you actually sew your garment. This will work great for finishing placemats, jackets, children's wear, and more. Use your tension release lever when you remove your sample. The tension release is really great when you serge decorative edges. Simple tension adjustments create exciting embellishment possibilities with the flat lock and ladder stitches. First, we will create a 3-thread flat lock. We snip the right needle thread and we loosen the left needle tension to 0. This is for a wide flat lock. The upper looper is at normal and the lower looper tension tightened slightly. Fold a piece of sweatshirt fleece in half. Serge along the fold, letting the stitches loop slightly off the edge of the fabric. Flat lock creates a decorative stitch as well as a seam you can use on fake furs and other heavy fabrics to eliminate bulk. A ladder stitch is formed on the other side of the fabric. Now remove your sample and pull it flat. If your stitches are not forming correctly, adjust tension and try it again. Decorative threads will make a difference. To stitch the flat lock on your right side, sew with wrong sides together. If the ladder stitch is desired on the right side, sew with right sides together. The blind hem foot, available as an accessory, is a perfect guide for flat lock stitching. You may wish to create a lighter flat lock using only 2 threads. For this technique, unthread the upper looper and remove the thread spool or cone completely so it does not tangle with the other threads while you are serging. Use the left needle and the lower looper threads only and place the 2-thread converter on your upper looper to fill the eye. Set the left needle tension to approximately 1 to 2 and the lower looper tension to about 1/2 to 1. You will need to experiment for a balanced stitch that pulls flat easily. This will vary according to threads and fabrics. Stitch a sample of the 2-thread flat lock on a piece of sweatshirt fabric now, folding it as before and stitching along the fold. You may wish to use the 2-thread or the 3-thread flat lock. It's your choice for the other flat lock technique samples. The advantage of a 2-thread flat lock is that the finished stitching has the least bulk. The 3-thread flat lock will be stronger, however. Use the same settings to apply lace to a piece of tricot using the 2-thread flat lock technique. Place the tricot under the presser foot with the lace on top. Serge the lace to the tricot. You may cut the tricot, but do not cut into the lace. We are using the left needle for the wider flat lock. On many lingerie garments, you will want to use the right needle for a narrower width stitch. This is the type of stitch you see on many ready-mades. Press the tension release lever and remove your sample now. This will look just like ready-made. The next series of techniques for your workbook will be stitched using the narrow rolled edge plate and foot. These are included with your Superlock, and you'll find them in your accessory box. The rolled edge is a wonderful technique to finish many of your projects and your garments. We will remove the right needle for this technique and use the left needle only. This gives us much more of a nice roll in the edge of the fabric. Once you've removed the regular presser foot, begin to replace the standard throat plate with the rolled edge plate. To remove the standard plate, simply loosen the screw at the left of the plate and lift the plate off. Then lay the rolled edge plate in place. This is marked with an R, so you'll never be confused as to which plate is which. And once you've laid it in place, replace the screw and tighten it. Once the plate is in place, you will then replace the presser foot with the rolled edge presser foot that also has an R on it. Both this foot and this plate will give you a very nice, tight rolled edge. The plate has a single finger. Now we're ready for our rolled edge techniques. Since we have the two-thread converter in place, let us stitch the first sample using only 2 threads. Set the needle tension to approximately 3 to 5. Ours is at 4. And the lower looper between 1 and 3. Ours is at 2. This will vary according to fabrics and different thread types. The stitch length is usually 1 to 2, depending on the finished look you desire. Often this technique is stitched with one of the invisible nylon or monofilament threads to form a rolled edge similar to those on ready-made scarves. Remember, rolled edge is for lightweight fabrics. Remove the two-thread converter now. We will stitch the next techniques using our 3-thread rolled edge technique. For this, we use the left needle only as before, and we continue to use the narrow rolled edge plate and foot, but we re-thread the upper looper. For a 3-thread narrow hem edge, use normal tensions and set the stitch length to about 2. This would give you a 2 millimeter width stitch. Notice this is simply a narrow version of the 3-thread overlock. You may need to tighten needle tension slightly for rolled edge techniques, but too tight will cause puckering or drawing of the edge. Experiment. Let's sew the shell edge now. Increase the lower looper tension slightly and lengthen your stitch to between 3 and 4. Now serge a shell edge on the edge of your silky woven fabric. The stitches actually should be pulling to the back side of the fabric, causing a shell or a scalloped effect. This technique is only suitable for soft materials that will roll with the stitching and is often used on silky scarves. The rolled edge is fantastic for napkin edges, ruffles, and so much more quick finishing. Continue to use the rolled edge plate and foot now, but set the stitch length to 1 and tighten the needle tension slightly from normal, loosen the upper looper tension slightly from normal, and tighten your lower looper tension, usually to somewhere between 7 and 9. You want the upper looper thread pulled all the way around to the back side to form the roll in the edge. Serge along one edge of another piece of silky woven fabric. When serging the rolled edge on napkins and other decorative projects, use a woolly nylon or another decorative type thread in the upper looper for a heavy decorative filled-in look. Consult your workbook for suggestions on threads. Experiment with novelty threads as suggested in the workbook, and then enter the tension settings so that you remember them for next time. Woolly nylon in the lower looper also helps create more roll on some fabrics. Won't this technique save you time? We have now completed the rolled edge techniques, so replace the standard needle plate and foot and both needles now and thread your Superlock for normal 3/4 thread serging for our next technique samples. The following techniques are for owners of the Superlock model 734DW with differential feed. When working on a serger without differential feed, puckering and waving are unavoidable on some special fabrics. Your Superlock model 734DW has 2 sets of feed teeth. The front feed teeth can be set to feed your fabric at a different rate, feeding more or less fabric into the back feed teeth to give the desired result. The differential feed is adjusted by the lever on the outside of the stitch length lever. Note you cannot set the stitch length higher than 4 when your differential feed is on 2. Set your Superlock to normal tension settings now with a stitch length between 2 and 3. You should have the standard foot and plate on. Select a lightweight woven or silky. Leave the differential feed set at 1 as on normal sergers. Fold the fabric in half and serge down one side. When the differential feed dial is at 1, both feed teeth feed at the same rate. Often silky and lightweight wovens will pucker slightly. To prevent this, set your differential feed dial to 0.7 or the lowest setting. Now serge down the opposite side of the fabric. At the 0.7 setting, the front feed teeth actually move slower and hold your fabric taut as you serge to prevent puckers. Remove your sample now and compare the seams. What a difference. Some knits will get very stretched out or wavy, especially when sewing with the stretch of the fabric. Your differential feed prevents this totally. Set the differential feed back to normal or 1. Use normal tension settings, stitch length 3. Fold a piece of stretchy rib knit in half and serge along one edge going with the stretch of the fabric. The fabric will actually stretch out as you are sewing, resulting in a very wavy, stretched out seam. You certainly wouldn't want this on your sweater. Now set your differential feed to 2. Serge down the opposite side of your sample. With the differential feed set at 2, it is in the highest setting, and the front feed teeth feed twice as fast as the back, accumulating fabric under the presser foot to offset the wavering and stretching of your fabric. Won't this make your sewing more professional? Gather quickly and easily utilizing your differential feed. Differential feed is set to 2 for gathering and the stitch length to 4. Use normal tension settings. Now serge along one edge of a lightweight woven. It will automatically gather. To vary the amount of gathers, adjust your stitch length. The longer the stitch length, the more the fabric gathers. Or for less gathers, set your differential feed closer to 1. Use differential feed gathers for easy ruffles, easing sleeve caps, and hems, and more. Blind hem guide feet are available from your white dealer in 2 sizes. The 0.5 foot for light to medium fabrics, and the 1.0 foot for medium to heavy fabrics. These feet also are great guides for flatlock, tucks, and other decorative applications. Use your left needle only for blind hem and loosen the needle tension slightly. Replace the regular presser foot with the 1.0 blind hem foot in this case, as we are using sweatshirt fabric. Your stitch length will be set between 4 and 5. Now, to fold your sweatshirt fabric for hem, turn up a 1-inch hem and fold the hem back toward the right side of the fabric, leaving a 1/4-inch extension of the wrong side of the hem to sew along. Now insert your fabric into the blind hem foot with the black guide against the fold of the fabric. Take a stitch or two by hand. The needle should barely catch the fold of the fabric. To adjust the black guide, loosen the screw and slide the guide to the left or the right as needed, then tighten the screw. Serge the hem. The edge of the fabric will be trimmed away. When starting a hem in the round on a cuff or a skirt, trim a small portion of the top edge of the hem so that it can be inserted completely under the presser foot and onto the feed teeth for a perfect start and finish. Practice makes perfect on blind hemming. The elastic foot will guide and stretch 1/4-inch and 3/8-inch elastic as you apply it to your garment. Insert the elastic into the foot between the rollers from front to back. The rollers are what stretch your elastic as you serge. Now, replace the blind hem foot on your Superlock with the elastic foot. You will be set for normal sewing. Normal tension, normal 3 or 4 thread stitch, stitch length 3 to 4. This will save you time, of course, on many of your projects requiring elastic. Now serge the elastic for about 1 inch to be sure that it's caught. Then insert the fabric under the presser foot and serge. After 1 inch or so, check your stitch formation and make tension adjustments if necessary. To adjust the amount of elastic being stretched onto the fabric, tighten the adjustment screw on top of the foot by turning it to the right for more stretch, or loosen it by turning it to the left for less stretch. This is fast and easy for lingerie, swimwear, kids' clothes, and more. Cover cord, insert piping or zippers faster than ever before with your Superlock piping foot. The groove on the underside of the foot feeds the piping perfectly. Use the normal tension settings, 1 or both needles, your choice, for 3 or 3/4 thread sewing, and a stitch length of 3. Place the piping foot on your Superlock. Then cut a piece of medium weight woven in half. Now insert the piping under the presser foot with the cord part of the piping tracking in the groove of the foot. Take a few stitches on your piping to be sure that it's feeding well. Next, take your fabric pieces and sandwich the piping between them so that the piping is on your 5/8-inch seam line. Isn't it great that your Superlock has a 5/8-inch seam line guide for your sewing? Now serge the seam. The piping foot will guide the piping right into the seam in one quick step, and the trimmed and finished seam edges will mean no fraying out of the finished garment or project. Your piping foot is a real time saver. Use the pearl sequin foot for fast, easy embellishments. Set your Superlock for flat lock. Use the left needle only for the larger 4mm size pearls, or for sequins, or the right needle only for the smaller 2mm size pearls. Needle tension will be 0 to 1, and you'll loosen the upper looper tension slightly and tighten the lower looper tension to about 7. You'll want to experiment till you have a perfect flat lock. Stitch length should be 4 to 5, depending on the size of your pearls, and set the stitch width to 6 on model 734DW. Now, put the pearl sequin foot on your Superlock. This foot has a special guide so that the pearls and the sequins have a place to ride as you're stitching them onto your fabric. Pearls and sequins can be applied to an edge or to a fold, which means that they will end up in the center of your garment. Now, once the foot is on your Superlock, put the pearls under the foot so that the front of the foot guide that goes over them, and they lay into the trough at the back of the foot. Take a few stitches over the pearls to be sure they are feeding. Be sure the back of the foot is down all the way and not on the pearls, as this will keep them from feeding. Now fold a silky woven in two and place the fold under the foot right at the needle line. Your needle should just catch the edge of the fabric, while your looper threads will encase the pearls along the edge, or in this case, along the fold of the fabric. Be sure to hold the pearls and the fabric taut as you serge them in place. Your thread color is important to the finished result. When applying sequins, match the thread to the color of your sequins. For pearls, match the thread to the fabric they are going on. Or try one of the new nylon transparent threads for either pearls or sequins. Remove the sample from your Superlock and use your fingernail to work any extra thread between the sequins or pearls. What a wonderful technique for your next party outfit. Our education department at White Sewing Machine Company is committed to helping you use your White Superlock to the fullest. Your sewing has never been faster and easier thanks to your new Superlock. Contact your White dealer for educational materials such as our new Super Serger video and the Know Your Superlock book, for accessory feet, cabinets, why, for all your sewing needs. Until next time, happy sewing!